Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Backlog Banter. I'm Tucker, and that is Abram. And today we are going to be talking about Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales for the PS4 and PS5. I played on PS5. Abram, though he has his fucking behemoth behind him, has not yet played anything on his PS5. And we're going to just talk about our first impressions of a game that we were both very excited for and now have had in our hands. I wish I had my DualSense with me to give a little prop comedy. So instead, I'll just molest the air a little bit. What are your thoughts on Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales?
Now, yes. So, Miles Morales, like you said, I have my PS5, but it arrived like an hour ago, and we are filming on Friday night. And so, because my PS5 was coming late, I bought the game on my PS4, and I'm just gonna get the free upgrade to the PS5 version once this guy's all fucking hooked up.
Yep.
So I played on PS4, and I haven't finished the game yet. I would say I'm probably 4 or 5 hours into it, so I'm pretty far along because I've been mainlining it. I would say
Okay.
I'm getting a little bit deeper in. What I want you to do is, before just to keep this conversation framed, what's the last point you got to?
Well, okay. So first off, minor spoilers for the first few hours of Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales. The last scene I completed was the suit making scene
Okay.
with Genki and Miles. But I have also played about 4 to 5 hours. I've
Okay.
been doing plenty of side stuff. So because I'm planning on platinuming this game. So when I was didn't want to have a scene going on because I had Becky there, B Tanner was recording something in the background. I didn't want to be playing a story segment, so I was just going around and taking out criminals and collecting what I call underground boxes or whatever. So
Yeah, sure. So I won't talk anything story past there. I am quite a bit past there because, like I said, just for the type of player I am. I like going through the main story and then I'll loop around to the open world stuff should I feel compelled. And I think I will be in this game
mhm.
for a bunch of different reasons. But yeah, so I'm a little bit past there. I think that this is 2018 Spider-Man with none of the fat.
Yeah, I
So
think that's very reasonable.
I think this game is absolutely awesome.
I am having a fantastic time with it. I had my friend Joe Wright over last night. He watched me play my first few hour and a half or so with it, just the intro sequence. He played a little bit on his profile. We swapped back and forth. We were testing performance mode versus graphics mode or whatever, visual fidelity mode, whatever it's
Yeah.
called, and just talking about the game and how it compared to the original, which he hadn't played and in which I've platinumed, and is one of my favorite games of all time. And I'm having a great time with this game. I'm reserving full judgment till I complete the story and see how the overall pacing of the game pans out for me, especially as I go for that platinum. But I'm having a great time with it, and it's a great way to launch any console, let alone a next gen console.
Yeah, I think this game feels really special for a lot of different reasons. The first thing I want to hit on, just so we can get out of the way, since I was playing on PS4, going into the version, I was a little bit trepidatious about how it would actually play. I didn't know if I
Mm-hmm.
was going to be feeling like I was losing anything. And as I wrote in a piece for CBR, because I was very surprised, the game runs great. It,
That's
it
it. Yeah. Okay.
really, it's basically what I said in my piece essentially was that in the context of this being a PS4 game, it's totally amicable. The
Yeah.
only ways that it falls flat is when you compare it to what it can be on
Sure.
PS5.
Yes.
So it's not a version that is uh, on last gen to its detriment. It's just to its benefit on next gen also.
Yeah.
So it makes me very hopeful for people that are sticking around on PS4 for a while for other games like Horizon and Sackboy,
Sure. Yeah.
since those are cross releasing. So I think that's really great on Insomniac and Sony's behalf.
Mm-hmm.
So just to note that up front, but beyond that, I think what I'm loving most about the game is Miles.
Yeah.
In every sense, narratively, I think he brings something really fun.
Mm-hmm.
But gameplay wise, I think that his powers make the moment to moment gameplay engaging in a way that I don't think Peter's gameplay was, and I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that. But the dimension added by his Venom attacks and the other things you're gonna get when you get a little bit deeper in
Mm-hmm.
are so cool, and they give you so many more possibilities.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the I have my notes, you know me, you know my notes. One of my notes that I have is that the Venom attacks just add another layer on top of the already very solid Spider-Man gameplay that they've had. The combining the obviously just the mashing square to use attacks, the dodge under, the yanks, the throws, and then on top of that you have the Venom meter building up and the finishers and stuff like that. It really comes together in a really fun way, and those moves just look fucking awesome, and they're really satisfying to use. I mean, I remember seeing those moves for the first few times in gameplay trailers where you're picking people up in the air and using the Venom punch and stuff like that. And it's flashy as all hell, but it's also very fun. That's not just flash over substance. It also really does impact the gameplay in a fun way. And one of my favorite things with the Venom is the Venom jump in the when you're doing just swinging around the city. It doesn't really add too much, but it looks damn awesome. It's really satisfying to use, and they didn't have to include that, but they were like, why not? It's fun. It adds a little something special. And I think you're right about Miles. I think that just from what I've played so far, I'm very much more interested in his story because I think it's something completely fresh. We're seeing new spins on his mom, on Genki lives with them. That's one of my biggest complaints with the story. Why is he there? Do you know why he lives with
Yeah,
them?
I mean, he's there for holiday break, right? Because when they're having one of the first conversations, like, "Oh yeah, I just came in, your mom let me in, I dropped my stuff off." And
Okay.
since it's holidays, it seems like they're just there for break, hanging
Okay,
out.
sure. All right. Never mind. I'll scratch that qualm. But and the other side characters that they introduced, which as far as I know, some of them have never existed in stories before. I've read some Miles comic books, but I've never heard of some of these characters, and I think that that's really cool, and how it meshes with superhero stuff and politics and all of that. I think is very compelling story wise. But the one thing I do want to add, after you mentioning playing it on the PS4 and feeling like it's not a detriment to the game, is that there are some moments in this game. Well, it looks absolutely fantastic, and the performance run 60 FPS is fucking fantastic. There are moments in this where I can tell that it is also designed for PS4 because you have things like you have to hold the triangle button down to do certain things, or you're doing the climbing through the vent sequences, which are things that I think will be ironed out through the course of the generation because we don't need those anymore. And I'm thinking, okay, this is not quite next gen because it has to be able to play on last gen. So I'm getting those classic moments that really make it feel a little bit held back, but overall it's not a detriment because it still feels like a next gen game in terms of visuals.
Yeah, you said a lot there that I want to talk about.
All right.
The story I think is something I want to hit on quickly because, like you, I don't have a lot of familiarity with Miles outside of this. Really, Into the Spider-Verse, which is my favorite Marvel film,
Mhm.
is my framework for him and how I know his how I know his uncle and how I know him and his family relationship. So that's my information base. I'm way more familiar with comics wise Peter. So getting introduced to Miles in a more robust way here is really great because I just think everyone here is so endearing. And it's a little there's certainly predictable elements here. The Peter and Miles dynamic feels a little bit forced or rushed or something. It's pretty clear that there's a little bit of a plot contrivance to get Peter out of the way to kind of
Sure. Yes, I agree
bring
with that.
bring them together and split them apart really quick. But I think on the whole, I like the way the story moves. I like the characters that are involved. I think that's really, really great.
Mhm.
Um, but one other thing is that I feel like a lot of my sentiments here apply to Spider-Man 2018 also.
Mhm.
And it's interesting to contextualize this as a standalone, as a DLC, as whatever you'll call it, because in some ways, I think that, like I said, by getting the fat off the bone in some elements, like having the different character sections, whether you like them or not, I think for me, they really slowed the pace of that game down.
Sure.
I think it does a lot to move the series forward, but a lot of the underpinnings of Spider-Man 2018 that I wasn't as big of a fan of still persist here.
Okay.
The biggest one for me, and why I choose to mainline the game, is the open world to me still feels very gamey. And what
Sure.
I mean is, I think one of my biggest issues with Spider-Man 2018 was, here are some big fucking totems on the map. Here's your big glowy point of interest. Let's go here. Here are
Mhm.
things on the map to check off, check off, check off. And that's basically the same thing here in Miles, which is why I'm curious to see where a full Spider-Man 2 moves the
Sure.
series.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you feel about that, but while I do prefer this a lot, it's not the full next step that I think both of us are kind of waiting for.
I agree in some regards. I don't have that issue with the checklisty side mission aspect of the game. To me, I mean, I platinumed the first game, so I spent my
Sure.
last 10 hours or whatever with that game just doing the side content, just taking out little groups of enemies or finishing the last collectibles. And that's just a natural part of video game playing to me. The fact that you do have the option to mainline the game and still have a fantastic experience, I think is cool and sort of uh, almost negates any issues I would have with the fact that there is a lot of side content. But I do actually think that this game does one of the biggest upgrades from the first game, in my opinion, how organically the side content and the main story is tied together. This story flows so well. It's not just you finish the mission and it's like, oh hey, an explosion happened over there. You can go there or you can dick around, but you should go over there, right? Like that's the story. But it's like, okay, someone's waiting for me. Like they give you a phone call, say, hey, what's up? You get a text on your phone. Like all of this flows really naturally in a way that I
Sure.
think the first game didn't, and that is one of my favorite things, especially with the added benefit of bringing up your side quests with a swipe of your finger on pop up on the side. It's not a full menu. It's really accessible. And I think that is really cool, and it makes the experience flow a lot better.
Yeah, I think this was Insomniac looking critically about what they did well and what they could improve on from 2018.
Yeah.
And while I still don't think it's that full step. I think it really shows that they're trimming and cutting where they need to and expanding where it makes sense. I think Spider-Man 2 is going to be really interesting in that respect. But I think where my points come from is the fact that we've gotten a lot of open world games since Spider-Man 2018.
Sure.
And the big one that comes to my mind that I've been playing a lot of recently is Ghost of Tsushima.
Hmm.
From, of course, that first party studio stable, also this time from a different studio being Sucker Punch.
Yes.
And part of what makes that game so interesting is the way that the world just feels cohesive and that it's not here's all of the blips you got to go to, right? So it's just a
Hmm.
different style of game. And I understand the more almost actually comic booky, larger than life feel of this game with how its side content is, how it feels more gamey. But I just think that personally, part of why I've been so attracted to PlayStation's IP, especially towards the latter half of the generation, is how it's kind of evolved, not in a maturity level, certainly, but also in the sense of making everything feel very in-world, very
Sure.
organic.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that when Insomniac continues, because they're obviously going to fucking continue with this, I hope that they move in that direction also. I don't want fucking grounded, gritty Spider-Man game.
No. Yeah.
I just want a world that feels, a little bit more in itself, as though you're stepping into that world instead of a video gamified version of it.
Yeah. So I think honestly, I'm pretty much done with a lot of my points. The last thing I want
Sure.
to touch on is the things that I do feel like are that next gen experience to me that I was blown away by when I started this game. And I don't know how much you can comment on them because you're playing on the last gen version, but I think this game, regardless, has these strong qualities, being how stupidly fluid the animations are. Miles wobbling his arms in the air and doing all these crazy new I can't stop using the word fluid, but fluid animations in combat where he's bouncing around and all that stuff. It's insane. And it's next level stuff of how detailed the animations are. And I love that.
Well, I mean, if there's one thing I know about you is that you like fluids, so that's totally in
Sure.
character.
Uh-huh.
But I absolutely agree. I texted this to you, and I think it's worth mentioning. I got chills playing the beginning of this game when they transition from narrative directly into gameplay, and they're like R2 to swing. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my
And that's the
god, we're
only
in it.
prompt on the screen.
We're in it.
Yeah.
There is such a confidence from Insomniac for the way that this game feels, and it's deserved.
Yeah.
Swinging just feels incredible. I don't think fundamentally it's too much different than
No.
2018, but it didn't need to be at all
No, exactly.
because it just feels so good.
Hmm.
And I mean, it's a point that's been hammered home for almost 3 years now, right? But the way that you're tethering not onto the fucking invisible anchor in the sky, but his webs are attaching to things.
Yeah.
It's just this added level of immersion that I think empowers the player to use, of course, the trope that has been beaten into the ground because it's the benchmark for these sorts of games. You
Really
feel
Spider-Man. Yeah.
you feel like Batman. You feel like Miles Morales, and that really is, it's cliche, but it's true.
Check the time code, see how long it took us to get to that point. But no, yeah, honestly, you're right with all of that. I do think that one of the things that really made me feel like this was next gen was those transitions, and especially that I played the the side mission that was saving Spider-Man the cat, and you have that at the end of that, you pop right out of a pipe, you just boom right into the overworld, and
That's on PS4 too.
okay, cool. Well, either way,
Yeah.
that is in that and continuing on the transitions between cutscene and gameplay in the story segments, I think are so impressive and continue the trend that this is not necessarily specifically next gen because Last of Us 2 did that a lot, but I think that that's really cool and it feels like a next level thing. There's not a hard cut most of the time, and I think that's awesome. Also, this game's for me on PS5, the particle effects and the lighting with the snow and the soft lamps or what are they called, street lights, just because this a lot of this game takes place at night or at sunset. The time sort of changes depending on what story missions you've beaten. And I think the lighting effects and stuff is just okay. Now this is next gen. Like I was looking out into the overworld, barely any pop in, just smooth as butter 60 FPS when you're playing on performance mode, even as someone who's not a frame hog. Like I don't really care that much about frame rate, but it really does look super, super good. And I don't know, can't say much more on that, but you have to see it for yourself.
So one of my questions, one of the things I'm most excited to experience when I'm actually playing on PS5 instead of PS4 is the DualSense haptics and everything and the triggers. Can you really feel that playing Miles Morales?
This is going to be a point that's going to be brought up through all of our PS5 discussions. Haptic feedback in the controller, not as big of a deal as people are making it out to be.
Okay.
And especially not in Miles Morales. Yes, there is rumble or I don't know how to refer to it. There is haptic in the controller when you're swinging and stuff, but it's not like people were saying that. At least in my opinion, people were saying that it sort of changes the way you feel like you're swinging. I disagree. I mean, there's a little bit of feedback when you press a thing and it flips out, but it's really pretty minimal. And also, just in general, I don't think that the haptic feedback is as mind blowing as people are making it out to be. I think I'm spoiled by HD Rumble. It is just worse HD Rumble in my fucking humble opinion. And that especially comes to fruition in Astrobot, which is something that is or Astro's Playroom, which is supposed to show off those effects of the controller. But no, they're not as big of an inclusion in this.
Yeah, because I heard the second best PlayStation podcast, PS I Love You XOXO, talking about the feel of haptics and everything. So I was curious how you came down on it. I'm very excited to feel that for myself because this is a meaty boy.
Yeah, the controller's great. I don't have
Like,
a lot of issues with the form factor.
I'm excited to put that in my hand again.
Okay, well, any other points?
It's fun.
Yeah, it's a fun game.
I think that's just worth hammering home. Above all else, the game is fun. In the words of Reggie, the game is fun. He emphasized words in a different way to change the meaning.
Is fun.
Right.
If it's not fun, then why bother?
Right. The quote has a completely different context, the way he was using it and the way he emphasized words.
Well, he also fucking visualized into a field of fucking flowers.
He did do that.
Yeah, and you don't have that ability, unfortunately.
I wish I did. But no, I'm really enjoying it. That's the bottom line. We don't really need to hammer that point home any more than that. I think this is an essential game to play.
Yeah. It's a great way to launch a console.
It's not Last of Us Part 2. It's not Ghost of Tsushima, but it didn't need to be, and it never was gonna be. For what Miles is, I think it's great, and I'm excited to check back in with you in probably just a couple days when we finish the game and we do a full review. Because I definitely want to.
Yeah, same here. Especially just for story segments, and I will push to try to get the platinum done before we get a review, so I can give a really full analysis on the game. But if that doesn't happen, it's whatever.
There's only room in my heart for one platinum trophy, Astro's Playroom.
Oh, well, not a hard one to do. So, All right. Well, thank you very much for watching, everyone. We do have a lot of
Yes.
other PS5 content coming. I think we will do a review of Asher's Playroom. We're going to do a full review of Miles Morales and just any game that we end up tackling on our next gen consoles. Yeah. What's the last thing? What do you got?
We are going to do it, right?
Bug snacks?
We are going to be talking about bug snacks.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really want to lay that on you too thickly.
I want games. You know? Then I
Nintendo
get that
Switch
one for
has
free.
games.
Nintendo Switch has games, but it doesn't have bug snacks.
No, it
You know what I'm
doesn't.
saying?
Could
Where's
have
the
bug
bugs?
snacks. That game could run on Switch.
I don't want it to. I want it here for free with PS Plus.
And you shall. And you shall.
I shall. I
See
think
you guys
we're
in another
fucking beating a
video.
dead
Yeah.
cow.
Fucking fuck you, cow. We're gonna see you guys in the video.
Goodbye.
Go fuck a cow.
Counting. Welcome back to Counting with Tucker. Holy fuck. This is a great controller, by the way. I'm gonna hit you with something.